because so many foreigners think, that let's say that sometimes it would be nice to buy a house in Cuba, and come, for example, for let's say for the sun, many people come to Cuba very often, let's say 2-3 times a year, and if you buy a house it could be cheaper, but there is one problem. In Cuba, foreigners cannot buy property. They don't sell it to you, this is the law. You can actually maybe buy a house under somebody else's name, you can buy it officially, for example, for Antonio, for the driver, but it's not officially yours. So it's a chance you take.
Driving, this is Matanza.
And 600 meters deep. To the left side, you can see a beach area. This is called El Tenis, very popular for locals, especially in summertime. I would say especially in July and August. These are the 2 hottest months in Cuba. This bay is very beautiful. In a given time, rivers and the city of bridges, because there are 3 rivers that go through the city, and many bridges all over.
The place is so beautiful and clean. There's no garbage, nothing, no bottle, no styrofoam box, no juice box.
And it's now 30-40 years old. A Russian Lada may easily be in Cuba around 15,000 US dollars.
Wow.
That's a lot of money, for this car, which is very old and very used. But as I told you, the demand is higher than the offer, and that's the problem. And then you can wonder, let's say, but how come people pay that much? It's true that is a lot of money to pay for the regular person in Cuba, and that's why you see that many people hitchhiking, because not everybody can afford that, but there are some people that can afford the price, and that's why the prices remain high. A car in Cuba is, I would say, luxury. Yeah. It's something that some people may afford, but not everybody. When we drive all along the highway, you can see many people hitchhiking, and there are people that even hitchhike to work. And when you hitchhike, you don't know exactly how long it's gonna take, It's a little bit a matter of luck. And maybe later, you may be too late for work. And you can say to your boss, sorry boss, I was not lucky with hitchhiking. That's a Cuban excuse. As we continue now all along the highway, every now and then here to the left, you will see a valley. What we call the Valley of Jumuri, full of royal palm trees, which is the national tree in in Cuba, like the maple tree in Canada. I was just mixing the information. But let's say what happens now with the motion, it's not easy to see. But later, further ahead, we are going to drive through the highest bridge of Cuba, and then from there you can take some good pictures. We cannot stop on the bridge, that's not allowed, but we're going to drive as slow as possible. I'll let you know as we get closer. Jumuri Valley.
Wow.
Beautiful valley full of royal palm trees.
Wow. The highest bridge in Cuba.
It's beautiful to both sides.
Wow. This is the tallest bridge.
Here around you may see many turkey vultures. I mean these big black birds you see to your right. They eat rotten food. They look for dead animals, but they don't hunt. They just look for dead animals. And And they are found here very often because they made the nest high on the rocks.
Okay. Interesting. Wow. Interesting. Interesting.
By the boundaries between the two provinces. That is why we cannot stop on the bridge. We stop on the bridge,
Police.
we block the traffic, you know, and the driver may get a fine. Fine is not expensive, everybody can afford that. But you know what the problem is? The driver may lose his driver's license if he gets 3 fines in a year. For a professional driver, that is a problem. He needs his driver's license to work. Liter gasoline in Cuba is at the moment like 30 Cuban pesos. That's very cheap. That's almost nothing. It's less than half, let's say, a Canadian dollar, or let's say, I would say less than 25 cents of a pound. Very, very cheap. But you know, let's say the price for oil, you know, in the internationally, you know, has increased, and Cuba have to import, you know, most of it. I mean, the one that is sold, you know, I mean, the gasoline and the diesel that we use for cars, because you know the oil we produce in Cuba is used for energy. But we can say that the price, you know, for oil, you know, and for gasoline, after, you know, now the COVID and with the war in Europe, you know.
Yeah, so we just made a quick stop at this place, getting quick washroom stop, and I realized some people are crazy over this puppy, this dog with obviously young pups, probably like not more than 3 days old. Very, very tiny puppies. Yeah, so we had some peanut colada. Peanut colada. They serve it in the pineapple. The pineapple is so sour. Yeah. There's a little souvenir shop also. And yeah, about to board the bus again.
Rum, Havana Club.
Havana Club from factory.
In Cuba, there are other rums, you know, like Legendario, that's actually made in Havana. We have Santero, Mulata. We also have, for example, let's say Caney, Cubay, and Santiago. These last 3 are made in the former Bacardi rum factory from Santiago de Cuba. But definitely, you know, Havana Club is the most commercialized Cuban rum. All Cuban rums are made out of molasses. That is an amber colored syrup we get from the sugar cane, which is actually fermented by using special yeasts. Let it distill for steel columns, and then what we obtain is kept in big barrels made out of white oak for the aging process. The longer we keep it in the barrels, the darker it gets, you know, and that's why you can see that the same Havana Club rum may be white, may be yellow, may be brown. That depends on the aging process. You know, we can say that in theory, you know, the white rum is used to mix, to prepare cocktails, and then the dark rum to drink pure with ice blocks. But in our culture, everything is possible. You know, you can see people drinking white rum pure, or you can see people, let's say, preparing cocktails with brown rum, as they do there in the Pina Colada bar, but officially, or let's say in theory, is all the way around. Another important product, you know, in the Cuban culture are actually Cuban cigars. We were talking about the Cohiba, for example, which is the most popular Cuban cigar. That is an Aboriginal name, the name given by the Aboriginal people to the cigars they used to roll. The second most popular one is actually called Monte Cristo, and the third most popular one, Romeo and Juliet. You know, these two are not Indian names, are actually Aboriginal names, but that is sorry, they are actually not Indian names, I'd say, but book names, and you can wonder why. That is related to a tradition in cigar factories. In every cigar factory there is a reader, somebody who is supposed to read the newspaper to keep these people updated, and later they may read a book. They were reading these books at the factory, The Count of Monte Cristo and Romeo and Juliet from Shakespeare, and they decided to name the new cigars after the books they were reading. So now you know the origin of the names of the three most popular Cuban cigars. Normally, when people think about cigars, think about Havana. Am I right or wrong? Even the word Habanos comes from Havana. Because what happens, in Pinar del Rio, the westernmost province of Cuba, the one that, as I was telling you, was affected by Hurricane Ian last year, we have the biggest tobacco fields in Cuba. Okay. But you know, in Havana, you know, we happen to have the biggest cigar factories. There are cigar factories like, for example, Corona, where they roll around 25,000 cigars a day. If we take into account that the cigars are rolled handmade, you know, that could be actually harder, you know, and you may imagine how many people have to work, you know, in just one factory. By the way, here to the left side, a power station where they generate energy out of Cuban petroleum. This is one of the 7 biggest in Cuba. So I can tell you that the, let's say, all Cuban cigars, or let's say the best brands, are hand rolled. You know, and in the cigar factories, most workers are women. Because women, you know, are better for the handwork, you know. They are meant to, but not very many. In order to become a cigar roller, you know, the workers, you know, they are trained 9 months. Like a woman waiting for the baby. And the cigars that they roll during the training period, they don't export it. They just sell it for local consumption, or let's say to the workers in the factory, you know, for the consumption there. But after 9 months, they get specialized, you know, and then they become as professional rollers. You know, another very special product, you know, in the Cuban economy, and let's say also in the Cuban culture, is actually Cuban coffee. The kind of coffee we cultivate in Cuba the most is Arabica coffee. That's a kind of coffee that should be cultivated in the mountains, normally around 400 meters above the sea level. You know, and normally they are planted on the higher trees, so they get the humidity and the shade from them. The coffee harvest is normally around September. The coffee beans are first green, later they turn yellow, and eventually red. Once they are red, they are ready to be harvested. So we are getting closer to Havana now, and as we get there, we are going to go through a tunnel. You know, a tunnel that was made under Havana's Bay. A tunnel that was made in the 50s by a French company and is considered one of the 7 wonders of Cuban architecture. It's like 700 meters long, 20 meters underwater, as I was telling you, under Havana's Bay. Here in Havana, and here to the left side you can see fortresses that were made to defend the city against pirates back in the colonial times. Nowadays, you know, they have become museums.
Havana now, doing a tour. Babylon there, watching boat.
And later it was restored and taken back into its original appearance. I like this square a lot because here you can see a mixture of different styles. You can see, for example, Art Nouveau from the beginning of the 20th century. You see the decoration based on nature. You see natural figures like plants, flowers, animals, birds. If you look all across the square, you can see Baroque style from the 18th century.
So pretty much they're explaining that the different colonial times, you can see the different design in the buildings. So depends on who colonized when, it shows the different years or different type of architecture. Mess. Walking through Havana. Nice. Walking through. Say hello, Carson. Hello. Hello.
Hotel Raquel. Very nice details, you know. Also Art Nouveau style from the beginning of the 20th century.
1908.
Next to Plaza Vieja. But here in the lobby, above on the roof, we happen to have the biggest stained glass from Havana all around the area. This is a very beautiful and a very special location for a hotel, you know.
Saving all my love for you. Whitney Houston.
Your little one?
No, he's 20 months.
Oh yeah, I have a granddaughter.
Oh yeah? Okay,
Yeah.
nice.
I like to eat.
He's good.
Sweet potatoes. Yeah, they're good.
Some cassava chips. Kind of crunchy. It's good. Carson is eating. Okay, so we're visiting this palace, usually the house of the Spanish governor or governors. Yeah. now a museum.
This building was finished, as I told you, in the year 1791 with Baroque style. It's a two-story building with an intermediate floor for the slaves that used to work in here.
What is this, Carson? What is this? What's this? What's that? Train. Yes, it is a train. You're so smart. You're so smart, Baba. Foto? Sure. Nice. Truck, Carson. Truck. Truck, Baba. Yeah, so these are from the 1800s. Oh. Okay. Spanish colonizers. Items. Oh, there's a binocular here. We have a big cruise ship here. All 50 feet vehicles. Oh, there's a Mercedes here. Okay.
You know, the Cubans are mostly Catholic. That's the biggest religion. You know, about 60% of Cubans are Catholic. We were a Spanish colony for about 400 years. But the second strongest religion is Catholicism. You know, and, sorry, Santeria. Santeria. That's a kind of voodoo from Central Africa, introduced by the African slaves. And that's precisely what these women represent on the other side. They are fortune tellers. The fortune tellers, you know, the African influence on the Cuban religion. You know, let's say, I'm not a fortune teller, but I can tell you what your future will be like today. I can tell you what you're doing next. One time you get back to Varadero, that's not that bad for somebody who is not a fortune teller. But these ladies over there, you know, they actually are related, you know, to this part of the Cuban culture. I mean, the African influence, this food from Central Africa. They found equivalents in the, let's say, in the Spanish culture for the ongots. So in the rituals, they would use the names of the Spanish saints, but within their heads, they would be thinking about the ongots. And that's why nowadays, these two religions are seen a little bit together. And it is related to this passage, you know, back in time.
That is a name Siga. Lang old tobacco in a job on there. Lang Siga. Yeah. Some fortune tellers are a form of voodoo. Hello, ladies. You know? That's our tradition. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man, I cried. Yeah, man. So the family them in that background, the African, you know what I mean? The long cigar. The family them, you know.
It's a luxury hotel with a swimming pool on the roof. Here to the left side, the hotel black and white, you know, is Hotel Iberostar Grand Packard. You know, a 5-star hotel from the Spanish company Iberostar, equivalent to Iberostar Varadero, for example, in Varadero. This one has an infinity swimming pool in the intermediate floor. The Sea Promenade, where we are driving now, is a popular meeting point for locals and tourists, especially at nights. It's also a fast connection between the oldest part of the city and the modern parts. The buildings here to your left are not in very good conditions. There is a big erosion here, a lot of salt in the air.
Okay.
When it gets windy, the waves may come into the other side, and here it can get slippery and dangerous. So they close the access to the Sea Promenade. When the Sea Promenade is closed, the other side streets get busier. Many people, remember, we came all along the coast up here.
This is the Atlantic Ocean. Atlantico.
As you look here to your left, you can see a hospital, Hermanos Almejeiras, one of the biggest in Cuba. And here to your left now, we can see a monument to Antonio Maceo. Antonio Maceo was a local hero in the independence wars against Spain in the 19th century. He died in battle. That's why his horse was on two legs, in this kind of brave position. Now I'm going to show you a very special hotel, Hotel Nacional. Hotel Nacional was a mafia hotel in the 50s, one of the hotels with the big casinos from before. You're going to see now further ahead here above the hill to your left. It's a hotel finished in the year 1930. In the 50s, the American mafia wanted to create a kind of little Las Vegas in Havana. And they had in big hotels like this, big casinos, for gambling and prostitution. They would give to the government part of the profits they made, so they never interfered in these affairs. And so was the situation up to the time of the revolution. Nowadays, these hotels remain open, but without casinos. The former casino here at the National Hotel has become a cabaret, Parisien, with the decoration of the 50s. It's the second most popular cabaret in Havana after Tropicana. Here behind, they are building a new hotel. You see the cranes there? After finish, it's gonna be the highest building in Havana. Here we can see different apartment buildings. It's a very nice area to live, very close to the Atlantic Ocean, to the Malecon, as we call the Sea Promenade. As we continue our drive, further ahead to your left, you are going to see a building with the green glass. That is the, we can say, the American Embassy. It started as a kind of consulate or Cuban office for American affairs, as it used to be called. But during Obama's administration, Obama wanted to get closer to Cuba, so then it was reopened as an embassy. And later came Trump, and everything went backwards. Now it remains open as an embassy, but they withdrew most of the personnel, so it's actually with limited possibilities. If you look to the left, then you can see the rest of the square. Here to your left behind, we find the National Theater. And this building here with Che Guevara to your left is the Ministry of Interior. Che Guevara from Argentina, he met Fidel in Mexico and decided to come with Fidel to Cuba to fight for the Cuban Revolution. He was one of the commanders of the guerrilla fights.
With Camilo.
he was one of the commanders of the guerrilla immigration stops, you know. And now we don't have any more Chinese coming to Cuba, but let's say we have Cubans with Chinese, there are Chinese descendants, or what I call Chinese looking Cubans. They look Chinese, but they are not Chinese anymore, you know. They are Cubans because they were born here. Here, to your right now, you can see the Capitol building, made as a copy of the Capitol in Washington. We saw it from old Havana, remember? Finished in the year 1929. It was originally used as the seat for the House of Representatives and the Senate up to the Revolution. Later, you know, it would become a museum. In the year 2019, they made the restoration of it, you know, for the 500th anniversary of Havana. And later it was reopened as the new seat of the Cuban Parliament. It's actually very beautiful, as you can see now to your right, you know. It's actually among the highlights of the local architecture. And here right next, we have Central Park, a Central Park in New York, where we're going to stop now. This is Central Park, and here around Central Park you're going to see once more many all-American cars working as taxis, yeah? We're going to step out here, and then we're gonna walk up to a place, you know, from which you're gonna have some free time. When they made the biggest daiquiri in the world, and then on the corner of the bar you find Hemingway's bronze statue. He's waiting for his daiquiri. It's a good place to sit down and get something to drink, also very appropriate washing.
Okay, so we're walking down the boulevard. We just passed Central Park. And now we're walking down some little shops, souvenir shops, stuff like that. Walking down the road with your pistol in your hand. Italiano. And now we're having hook bite, veggie pizza, cheese pizza at the Caribbean restaurant.
We can see the Spanish embassy. Now we go again through the tunnel, and then on the other side, you know, we are going to go out of the city. After Bay of Pigs invasion, you know, in Cuba, we brought nuclear missiles, you know, from the former Soviet Union, so as to get defended against any other possible invasion. America knew about it, and the war was about to start. And you know, but finally, Nikita Khrushchev, who was the president in the former Soviet Union, withdrew the missiles and made an agreement with Kennedy that they should not organize any other invasion against Cuba. And let's say, now I'm going to show you something which is related to this historical event, because before we leave the city, as I told you, I have a surprise for you. But it's not related to history, you know. History, you know, it's not interesting for everybody, but what I'm going to show you is something very special, you know, a very special observation point with a very nice view of the city. You were asking me about the monument over there, you see? And I was telling to some of you that it was Jesus Christ. And I'm going to tell you the story, and I'm going to take you there for a very nice view and for very nice pictures before we leave the city. Start. I was not even born at that time. I'm just telling you details of history.
Yeah, so Just doing a panoramic view overlooking the city of Havana. Yeah. There's a huge monument of Jesus. Huge. I don't remember how much meter they say this is, but it's really tall. Yeah. Havana.